Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls her age. While her classmates spent their weekends at shopping malls and movie theaters, she could be found at the local shooting range with her grandfather, a retired Marine who had served 3 tours in Vietnam. By the time she turned 16, Sarah could hit a target at 300 yards with iron sights, a skill that impressed even the most experienced marksman at the range. Her grandfather, Eduardo Martinez, recognized something special in his granddaughter. She possessed an unusual combination of patience, steady hands, and an almost supernatural ability to read wind patterns and distance. More importantly, she had the mental discipline that separated good shooters from exceptional ones. Eduardo had seen many soldiers come and go during his military career, but few had the natural instincts that Sarah displayed. When Sarah announced her intention to join the military after high school, her parents were initially resistant. Her mother, Maria, worried about sending her only daughter into harm's way, while her father, Carlos, questioned whether the military was the right path for a young woman with Sarah's academic potential. She had maintained a 3.8 GPA throughout high school and received scholarship offers from several universities. However, Sarah's mind was made up. She had grown up listening to her grandfather's stories about brotherhood, honor, and serving something greater than oneself. She wanted to follow in his footsteps, but she also wanted to prove that she could excel in areas where women were traditionally underrepresented. After months of family discussions and careful consideration, her parents finally gave their blessing. Sarah enlisted in the Army immediately after graduating high school. Basic training at Fort Moore was challenging, but she thrived in the structured environment. Her drill sergeants quickly noticed her exceptional marksmanship abilities during weapons training. While other recruits struggled to qualify with their service rifles, Sarah consistently scored expert ratings, often achieving perfect scores that impressed even the most seasoned instructors. During her advanced individual training for military police, Sarah's shooting abilities continued to stand out. Her instructors recommended her for additional marksmanship training, and she began to hear whispers about opportunities in special operations units. The idea both excited and intimidated her. She knew that such positions would push her to her absolute limits, but she was determined to see how far her abilities could take her. After completing her initial training, Sarah was assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where she served with the 716th Military Police Battalion. Her duties included base security, convoy escort, and law enforcement activities on the installation. While she performed her assigned tasks competently, Sarah felt underutilized. She spent her free time at the base shooting range, constantly working to improve her already impressive skills. It was during one of these practice sessions that Master Sergeant James Chun first noticed her. Chun was a scout sniper instructor who had been observing soldiers across various units, looking for candidates who might possess the rare combination of skills necessary for sniper training. He watched Sarah shoot for over an hour, noting not just her accuracy, but her breathing control, trigger discipline, and ability to maintain consistency shot after shot. After Sarah finished her practice session, Chun approached her. He was a compact man in his early 40s, with intense eyes and a quiet demeanor that commanded respect. His uniform displayed numerous ribbons and badges, including the distinctive sniper qualification badge that immediately caught Sarah's attention. Specialist Martinez, Chun said, consulting the sign-in sheet at the range. "I've been watching you shoot. That's some impressive marksmanship." Sarah straightened to attention, unsure of what to expect. "Thank you, Master Sergeant. Tell me something," Chun continued, his voice measured and calm. "What do you know about the Scout Sniper School?" Sarah's heart rate quickened. She had heard rumors about the legendary training program, whispered conversations among soldiers about the most elite marksmen in the military. "I know it's supposed to be extremely difficult, Master Sergeant. Only the best shooters even get the chance to try." She nodded slowly. "It is difficult. Most candidates don't make it through the first week. The physical demands are severe, the mental pressure is constant, and the standards are unforgiving. But from what I've seen here today, you might have the raw ability to succeed." He paused, studying Sarah's reaction carefully. I'm putting together a list of potential candidates for the next class. If you're interested, I can arrange for you to take the preliminary assessment. But understand this, just because you can shoot doesn't mean you can be a sniper. The training will test every aspect of your character, your dedication, and your ability to perform under pressure. Sarah didn't hesitate. I'm interested, Master Sergeant. Very interested. Good. But before you commit to this path, you need to understand what you're getting into. Snipers operate alone or in very small teams, often behind enemy lines. You'll be required to remain motionless for hours or even days, waiting for the right moment. You'll need to make life and death decisions in split seconds, often with incomplete information. And you'll need to live with the consequences of those decisions for the rest of your life. Chen's words carried the weight of experience, and Sarah could see in his eyes that he had faced those very situations himself. But rather than intimidating her, his honesty only strengthened her resolve. Understand, Master Sergeant. I want the opportunity to prove myself. Over the following weeks, Chen arranged for Sarah to undergo a series of preliminary assessments. These tests evaluated not just her shooting ability, but her physical fitness, psychological stability, and aptitude for the complex calculations required for long-range precision shooting. She excelled in every area, earning scores that placed her among the top candidates Chun had ever evaluated. The psychological evaluation was particularly thorough. Military psychologists assessed her ability to handle stress, her decision-making processes under pressure, and her emotional stability. They probed her motivations for wanting to become a sniper, exploring whether she truly understood the psychological demands of the role. Sarah's responses impressed the evaluation team. She demonstrated a mature understanding of the responsibilities involved and showed no signs of the aggressive tendencies or unrealistic expectations that often led to training failures. 3 months after her initial conversation with Master Sergeant Chen, Sarah received her orders. She was accepted into the next Scout Sniper School class, scheduled to begin in 6 weeks at Fort Moore. The notification came with a lengthy list of preparation requirements, including additional physical training standards and recommended reading materials on ballistics, weather patterns, and field craft techniques. Sarah threw herself into the preparation with characteristic determination. She increased her daily physical training, focusing on endurance activities that would prepare her for the long periods of physical stress she would face during the course. She studied the recommended materials extensively, memorizing ballistic charts and learning to calculate range estimates using various techniques. Her fellow soldiers at Fort Campbell began to treat her differently once word spread about her acceptance into sniper school. Some were supportive and encouraging, recognizing the honor of being selected for such an elite program. Others, particularly some of the male soldiers, expressed skepticism about whether a woman could succeed in such a demanding course. The skepticism didn't bother Sarah. She had faced doubts about her abilities throughout her military career, and she had consistently proven herself through performance rather than words. If anything, the skepticism motivated her to train even harder. She knew that as one of the few women ever accepted into the program, she would face additional scrutiny and pressure to succeed. 2 weeks before the course was scheduled to begin, Sarah received a call from Master Sergeant Chen. His tone was more serious than usual, and she could sense tension in his voice. Martinez, I need to talk to you about something important. There's been some discussion among the instructional staff about having a female candidate in the program. While I personally believe you have the skills to succeed, I want you to understand that you'll be facing challenges beyond the normal course curriculum. Sarah appreciated his honesty. What kind of challenges, Master Sergeant? Some of the instructors have never worked with a female sniper candidate before. They may push you harder than the male students, looking for any sign of weakness or failure. You'll need to be not just as good as the male candidates, but better. And you'll need to do it without complaining or asking for special treatment. I wouldn't expect special treatment, Master Sergeant. I just want the same opportunity to prove myself that any candidate would get. That's exactly the attitude you'll need, Chen replied. But I also want you to know that if you do encounter any inappropriate behavior or treatment that goes beyond normal training stress, you need to report it immediately. The goal is to train you to be the best sniper you can be, not to break you down for the wrong reasons. As the start date approached, Sarah completed her final preparations. She said goodbye to her family during a brief leave, assuring them that she was ready for the challenge ahead. Her grandfather pulled her aside during the family dinner, his weathered hands gripping her shoulders as he looked directly into her eyes. "Mija," he said, using the Spanish term of endearment he had called her since childhood, "you have always been special. You have a gift, but more than that, you have the heart of a warrior. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong where you're going. You've earned this opportunity through your own merit." His words stayed with her as she packed her gear and prepared to report to Fort Moore. She knew that the next several months would test her in ways she had never been tested before. The training would push her physical and mental limits, and she would need to prove herself worthy of wearing the sniper badge that represented the pinnacle of military marksmanship. On the evening before she was scheduled to report for the course, Sarah sat alone in her barracks room, cleaning her rifle one final time. The M4 carbine had been her constant companion throughout her military service, and she knew its characteristics intimately. Tomorrow, she would begin training with precision rifles that would demand even greater skill and understanding. As she worked, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From a young girl learning to shoot with her grandfather, to a soldier earning the respect of her peers, to a candidate selected for one of the military's most elite training programs. Each step had prepared her for the next, building the foundation of skills and confidence she would need to succeed. She thought about the women who had come before her in combat roles, breaking barriers and proving that gender was not a determining factor in military capability. She felt the weight of their example, knowing that her performance would influence opportunities for future female candidates. Sarah also considered the practical challenges she would face. The physical demands of sniper training were legendary. Candidates were required to carry heavy equipment over long distances, remain motionless in uncomfortable positions for extended periods, and maintain peak performance while operating on minimal sleep and nutrition. The mental demands were equally challenging, requiring candidates to master complex calculations while under stress and make precise shots under adverse conditions. But beyond the technical aspects of the training, Sarah knew that she would be entering a culture that had been predominantly male for decades. She would need to earn acceptance through performance, demonstrating that she possessed not just the skills, but the mental toughness and reliability that her fellow snipers would depend on in combat situations. The next morning, Sarah reported to Fort Moore with her gear packed and her mind focused on the challenges ahead. She joined 32 other candidates from various military branches and specialties, forming the largest sniper school class in recent memory. The diversity of backgrounds represented in the group was impressive, including infantry soldiers, Marines, special operations personnel, and military police officers like herself. During the initial briefing, the head instructor, Colonel Patricia Williams, outlined the program's objectives and standards. Colonel Williams was herself a groundbreaking figure, having been one of the first women to qualify as a sniper instructor. Her presence provided Sarah with additional motivation, proof that success was possible despite the historical barriers. Over the next 10 weeks, Colonel Williams announced to the assembled candidates, "You will be tested in ways that will reveal your true character. This course has a failure rate of approximately 60%, not because we want you to fail, but because the standards required of military snipers cannot be compromised. You will learn precision marksmanship, field craft, observation techniques, and mission planning. But most importantly, you will learn whether you have what it takes to operate as a sniper in combat conditions." As Sarah looked around at her fellow candidates, she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She was ready to begin the most challenging period of her military career, determined to prove that she belonged among the military's elite marksmen. The first 3 weeks of Scout Sniper School tested every aspect of Sarah's preparation and mental fortitude. The days began at 0430 hours with physical training that pushed the candidates beyond their comfort zones. Long-distance runs carrying full combat loads, obstacle courses designed to simulate battlefield conditions, and endurance exercises that seemed designed more to break spirits than build strength. Sarah quickly discovered that her fellow candidates came from diverse backgrounds, each bringing unique strengths to the program. There was Rodriguez, a Marine infantry veteran with 2 combat deployments who could read terrain features like a book. Jackson, a special forces medic who possessed an almost supernatural ability to remain motionless for hours. Thompson, an Army Ranger with exceptional mathematical skills, who could calculate ballistic solutions faster than most candidates could use their ballistic computers. Despite the individual strengths each candidate brought to the program, the instructors made it clear that past achievements meant nothing in sniper school. Every candidate started from zero, and every skill would be evaluated against the unforgiving standards required of military snipers. The academic portion of the training was as demanding as the physical challenges. Candidates spent hours learning the science behind precision shooting, ballistics, meteorology, range estimation, and the complex calculations required to place accurate shots at extreme distances. Sarah excelled in these areas, her natural mathematical ability and attention to detail helping her master concepts that many of her fellow candidates struggled with. However, it was during the fieldcraft training that Sarah first encountered the challenges Master Sergeant Shun had warned her about. The instructors, all experienced snipers themselves, began subjecting her to scrutiny that seemed to go beyond normal training stress. While other candidates were given opportunities to correct mistakes and learn from errors, Sarah found herself facing immediate consequences for even minor infractions. During one particularly challenging exercise, candidates were required to construct hide sites that would allow them to observe a target area while remaining completely concealed. The exercise tested not just technical skills, but patience and attention to detail. Sarah spent hours carefully constructing her position, using natural materials to create a concealment that she was confident would pass inspection. When Sergeant First Class Robert Hayes conducted his evaluation, he spent less than 30 seconds examining Sarah's hide before declaring it inadequate. Martinez, this position is garbage. You might as well have hung a neon sign announcing your presence. Start over, and this time try to remember that real enemies shoot back. Sarah was confused by the assessment. Her hide site appeared identical to those constructed by other candidates, some of which had received passing grades. But she didn't argue or complain. Instead, she dismantled her position and began again, making subtle improvements based on Hayes' critique. The pattern continued throughout the following weeks. While other candidates received detailed feedback on their performance, Sarah often received only terse comments about her failures. When she performed well, her success was attributed to luck or favorable conditions rather than skill. The constant criticism began to wear on her confidence, making her second-guess decisions and techniques that she had previously executed with confidence. The situation came to a head during the 4th week of training, during what the instructors called Stress Week. Candidates were deprived of adequate sleep and nutrition while being required to maintain peak performance in all training activities. The exercise was designed to simulate the physical and mental stress of combat operations, where snipers might be required to operate effectively while experiencing significant deprivation. Sarah had been without meaningful sleep for over 40 hours when she was called forward for a critical shooting evaluation. The test required her to engage targets at varying distances while calculating range and wind corrections under time pressure. It was one of the most challenging shooting exercises in the entire program, and failure would result in immediate dismissal from the course. As Sarah approached the firing position, she noticed Sergeant Hayes observing the exercise with unusual intensity. Several other instructors had also gathered to watch, creating an atmosphere of heightened scrutiny that was uncommon for routine training evaluations. The first target appeared at 600 yards, a distance that required precise calculations and perfect execution. Sarah quickly estimated the range, adjusted for wind conditions, and fired. The shot struck the target's center mass, earning approving nods from some of the observing instructors. The second target was more challenging, positioned at 800 yards in a location that required Sarah to account for an uphill angle and crosswind. She took additional time to ensure her calculations were correct, then fired. Another successful hit, this one earning a grudging acknowledgement from Hayes. The final target was the most difficult of the sequence, positioned at over 900 yards in conditions that tested the limits of both the rifle and shooter. Sarah knew that this shot would determine whether she continued in the program or returned to her previous assignment in failure. As she prepared for the shot, Sarah felt the weight of expectation from everyone watching. She could sense that this evaluation was about more than just her shooting ability. Some of the instructors wanted to see her succeed, while others seemed to be waiting for her to fail so they could justify their belief that women didn't belong in the sniper program. Sarah forced herself to focus on the fundamentals that had carried her this far. She controlled her breathing, settled into a stable shooting position, and carefully calculated the ballistic solution for the challenging shot. The crosswind was gusty and variable, requiring her to time the shot for a brief lull in the wind patterns. When the moment was right, Sarah squeezed the trigger with the same smooth, controlled motion she had practiced thousands of times. The rifle recoiled against her shoulder, and she immediately followed through, maintaining her sight picture to observe the impact. The bullet struck the target with devastating accuracy, hitting within inches of the designated aiming point despite the challenging conditions. Several instructors exchanged surprised glances, clearly impressed by the quality of the shot. But Sergeant Hayes was not among them. As Sarah began to celebrate internally, Hayes stepped forward with a scowl on his face. "Lucky shot, Martinez. Don't let it go to your head." The comment stung more than Sarah had expected. After weeks of criticism and skepticism, she had hoped that this demonstration of her abilities would finally earn some recognition. Instead, Hayes seemed determined to dismiss her accomplishments regardless of her performance. That evening, as candidates cleaned their weapons and prepared for the next day's training, Sarah found herself questioning whether she truly belonged in the program. The constant criticism and dismissal of her achievements was taking a psychological toll that she hadn't anticipated. She began to wonder if the instructors saw something in her performance that she was missing, some fundamental flaw that made her unsuitable for sniper operations. Her doubts were interrupted by Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing the dynamics within the training group. The experienced Marine had seen enough military politics to recognize what was happening to Sarah. "Don't let Hayes get in your head," Rodriguez said quietly as he cleaned his rifle at the station next to Sarah's. "I've been watching your performance, and you're one of the strongest shooters in this class. What's happening to you isn't about your abilities." Sarah appreciated the support, but she was reluctant to believe that her treatment was unfair. She had been raised to take responsibility for her own performance and to work harder when faced with criticism. "Maybe he's seeing something I'm missing," Sarah replied. "Maybe I need to push myself harder." Rodriguez shook his head. "I've served with a lot of good snipers, and I've seen how this training is supposed to work. What you're experiencing isn't normal training stress. It's something else entirely." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Master Sergeant Chun, who had been observing the day's training activities from a distance. Chun rarely interacted with candidates during the formal training phases, preferring to let the assigned instructors handle day-to-day instruction. But he had noticed the unusual dynamics surrounding Sarah's treatment and decided to intervene. "Martinez, I need to see you outside," Chun said, his voice carefully neutral. Sarah followed Chun out of the barracks building, unsure of what to expect. Chun led her to a quiet area away from the other candidates and instructors before speaking. "I've been watching your progress in the program," Chun began. "Your shooting performance has been exceptional, and your academic scores are among the highest in the class. But I can see that something is affecting your confidence. Sarah hesitated, unsure of how much she should reveal about her growing doubts. I'm trying to meet the standards, Master Sergeant. If the instructors feel that I'm not performing adequately, then I need to work harder. Chen studied her carefully before responding. Martinez, I've been training snipers for over 15 years, and I can recognize the difference between appropriate training stress and inappropriate targeting of individual candidates. What you're experiencing is not normal, and it's not based on your performance. His words confirmed what Rodriguez had suggested, but Sarah still found it difficult to accept that she might be facing unfair treatment. What should I do, Master Sergeant? Keep performing at the same high level you've been demonstrating. Don't let anyone convince you that you don't belong here based on anything other than objective performance standards. And remember that the ultimate measure of a sniper's worth isn't what happens in training, but how they perform when lives are on the line. Chen's words provided Sarah with renewed determination, but she knew that the remaining weeks of training would continue to test her resolve. The instructors who doubted her abilities weren't going to change their minds based on a single conversation, and she would need to prove herself through sustained excellence over time. The next phase of training focused on advanced field exercises that combined all the skills candidates had learned in previous weeks. These exercises required candidates to operate in small teams, conducting simulated sniper missions under realistic conditions. The training scenarios were designed to test decision-making abilities, teamwork, and the ability to perform under stress. Sarah was paired with Thompson, the Army Ranger whose mathematical skills complemented her shooting abilities. The partnership proved to be highly effective, with Thompson handling many of the complex ballistic calculations while Sarah focused on shot execution and target identification. Their first major exercise required them to infiltrate a designated area, establish an observation post, and gather intelligence on enemy activities over a 48-hour period. The scenario included multiple target engagement opportunities that would test their ability to coordinate as a sniper team. The infiltration phase went smoothly, with Sarah and Thompson successfully reaching their assigned position without detection. They established a well-concealed observation post that provided excellent visibility of the target area, while keeping them hidden from opposing forces. Over the following hours, they gathered detailed intelligence on enemy movement patterns and identified several high-value targets that appeared during the exercise. When the opportunity arose to engage designated targets, their coordination was flawless. Thompson provided rapid ballistic solutions while Sarah executed precise shots that eliminated targets with clinical efficiency. The exercise concluded with their extraction from the operational area, a challenging movement that required them to avoid detection while carrying all their equipment. Sarah and Thompson completed the entire scenario without being detected and with a perfect record of target engagement. When the exercise was evaluated, Colonel Williams herself conducted the debrief. She reviewed their performance in detail, highlighting the exceptional coordination and professional execution they had demonstrated throughout the operation. Martinez and Thompson, Colonel Williams announced to the assembled candidates, "This is the standard we expect from qualified sniper teams." Their performance during this exercise was textbook perfect, demonstrating the level of skill and professionalism required for sniper operations. For the first time since beginning the program, Sarah received unqualified praise for her performance. The recognition felt even more meaningful coming from Colonel Williams, whose own achievements as a female sniper provided inspiration for Sarah's efforts. However, not everyone was pleased with Sarah's success. As the candidates dispersed after the debrief, Sarah overheard Sergeant Hayes talking to another instructor in what he thought was a private conversation. "One good exercise doesn't prove anything," Hayes was saying. "She got lucky with a good partner and favorable conditions. Wait until she's under real pressure before making any judgments about her capabilities." The comment reinforced Sarah's understanding that she would need to prove herself repeatedly, and that some instructors would look for any opportunity to question her qualifications. But rather than discouraging her, the ongoing skepticism only strengthened her resolve to succeed. The final weeks of the program included the most challenging exercises of the entire course. Candidates were tested on their ability to operate independently, making critical decisions under extreme stress while maintaining the precision and discipline required of military snipers. Sarah approached these final challenges with the confidence earned through weeks of proven performance. She had demonstrated her abilities repeatedly, earning respect from most of her fellow candidates and several of the instructors. More importantly, she had proven to herself that she possessed the skills and mental toughness required for sniper operations. But the most significant test was yet to come, and it would arrive in a form that none of the candidates expected. The 8th week of sniper school brought an unexpected development that would change everything for Sarah and her fellow candidates. During what should have been a routine morning briefing, Colonel Williams entered the classroom with an expression that immediately commanded attention. Behind her walked a figure that caused murmurs of recognition throughout the room. Brigadier General Michael Harrison was a legend in the special operations community. His career included multiple combat deployments, and he was known for his direct approach to problem solving and his willingness to make difficult decisions under pressure. His unexpected presence at sniper school suggested that something significant was about to happen. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colonel Williams announced, "General Harrison has traveled here today to discuss a matter of urgent importance. I'll turn the briefing over to him." General Harrison stepped forward, his weathered face reflecting the seriousness of his message. 2 days ago, intelligence agencies identified a high-value target operating in a contested area of operations. This individual poses an immediate threat to American forces and coalition personnel, but his location and security arrangements make conventional military action extremely difficult. The general paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "We need a precision engagement to neutralize this threat, and due to the specific operational requirements, we're looking for volunteers from this sniper school class to support the mission." The room fell silent as candidates processed the implications of what they were hearing. This wasn't a training exercise or a simulation. They were being offered the opportunity to participate in an actual combat operation while still in training. "I want to be absolutely clear about what I'm asking," General Harrison continued. "This mission involves significant risk, and participation is entirely voluntary. Any candidate who volunteers will complete specialized preparation training before deployment. Those who prefer to continue with the standard training program will do so without any negative consequences." Sarah felt her heart rate increase as she considered the opportunity being presented. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had joined the military to face, but the timing was unexpected. She was still working to prove herself in the training environment, and now she was being offered the chance to demonstrate her abilities in actual combat. Around the room, other candidates were clearly struggling with the same decision. Some appeared eager to volunteer, while others seemed more cautious about interrupting their training for an uncertain mission. General Harrison gave the candidates time to consider their decision before explaining the selection process. Volunteers will undergo additional evaluation to determine their suitability for this specific mission. The operational requirements are unique, and not every qualified sniper will be appropriate for this particular engagement. Sarah didn't hesitate. When Colonel Williams called for volunteers, she immediately stood up, followed by 12 other candidates, including Rodriguez and Thompson. The volunteers were dismissed from the regular training schedule and directed to report for mission-specific briefings. Over the following days, Sarah and the other volunteers underwent intensive preparation for the deployment. They learned about the target, the operational environment, and the specific challenges they would face during the mission. The intelligence briefings revealed that their target was a senior terrorist leader who had been responsible for planning attacks against American forces. His elimination would significantly disrupt terrorist operations in the region. The mission planning process was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during her military career. Every aspect of the operation was scrutinized and refined from insertion and extraction procedures to contingency plans for various scenarios. The volunteers worked closely with intelligence analysts, mission planners, and operational commanders to ensure they understood every detail of their assigned roles. Sarah found herself assigned as the primary shooter for one of the sniper teams, partnered with Rodriguez, who would serve as her spotter. The selection validated her shooting abilities and demonstrated that the mission commanders recognized her skills despite the challenges she had faced during training. The preparation phase also included additional weapons training with a specific rifle system they would use during the mission. The M2010 Enhanced Sniper Rifle was a precision weapon system capable of engaging targets at extreme distances with devastating accuracy. Sarah spent hours familiarizing herself with the rifle's characteristics, learning to maximize its capabilities under various conditions. As the deployment date approached, Sarah experienced a mixture of excitement and apprehension that she had never felt before. This would be her first combat deployment, and the success of the mission would depend in part on her ability to perform under the ultimate pressure. She thought about her grandfather's stories of combat, and she wondered if she possessed the same courage and composure that had earned him respect among his fellow Marines. The night before deployment, Master Sergeant Chun approached Sarah for a private conversation. His expression was more serious than she had seen throughout the training program. "Martinez, I want you to understand something important about what you're about to do. Combat is different from any training you've experienced. The enemy is real, the consequences are permanent, and there's no opportunity for do-overs if things go wrong." Sarah listened carefully, recognizing the value of Chen's experience and guidance. "But I also want you to know that you've earned this opportunity through your performance, not through luck or chance. You've demonstrated the skills and judgment required for this mission, and I have complete confidence in your abilities." Chen's words meant more to Sarah than any praise she had received during the training program. Coming from someone whose opinion she respected deeply, the endorsement gave her additional confidence as she prepared for the most important test of her military career. The deployment to the operational area involved a complex series of flights and ground movements that took Sarah and her team to a forward operating base near the target location. The base was a stark reminder of the reality of combat operations, with concrete barriers, guard towers, and the constant presence of heavily armed personnel. Sarah and Rodriguez spent their first day at the forward operating base conducting final mission preparations. They studied satellite imagery of the target area, refined their shooting positions, and coordinated with the other elements involved in the operation. The level of detail required for the mission planning was extraordinary, with every possible contingency addressed through careful analysis and preparation. The mission itself was scheduled for the following evening, when intelligence indicated that the target would be present at a location that offered the best opportunity for a precision engagement. Sarah and Rodriguez would be positioned approximately 800 meters from the target building, providing them with clear lines of sight while maintaining sufficient distance to ensure their own security. As evening approached, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The success of the mission would depend on her ability to make an extremely difficult shot under combat conditions. Lives were at stake, both American forces who were threatened by the target's activities and her own team members who would be at risk if the mission failed. The infiltration to their shooting position went smoothly, with Sarah and Rodriguez reaching their designated location without detection. They established their hide site using techniques learned during training, creating a concealed position that offered excellent visibility while keeping them hidden from enemy observation. As they waited for their target to appear, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a young girl learning to shoot with her grandfather, through the challenges of sniper school, to this moment when everything would depend on her ability to perform under ultimate pressure. The target appeared at exactly the time predicted by intelligence, moving into the building that Sarah and Rodriguez had been watching. Through her scope, Sarah could see the individual who had been responsible for so much violence and death. This was the moment when all her training and preparation would be put to the ultimate test. Rodriguez provided a continuous stream of information about wind conditions, range adjustments, and target movement as they waited for the optimal moment to take the shot. Sarah controlled her breathing and settled into the shooting position that had become second nature through countless hours of practice. When a moment was right, Sarah squeezed the trigger with the same smooth, controlled motion she had perfected during training. The rifle recoiled against her shoulder, and she immediately followed through to observe the impact. The bullet struck its target with devastating precision, achieving the mission objective in a single shot. The terrorist leader who had posed such a significant threat to American forces was eliminated through the application of skills that Sarah had worked years to develop. The extraction from their position proceeded without incident, and within hours Sarah and Rodriguez were back at the forward operating base, preparing for their return to the sniper school. The mission had been a complete success, accomplished without casualties to American forces and with minimal risk to the surrounding civilian population. When they returned to Fort Moore, Sarah found that news of the successful mission had preceded them. The volunteers who had participated in the operation were treated with new respect by instructors and fellow candidates alike. More importantly, Sarah's performance during the mission had finally silenced the skeptics who had questioned her abilities throughout the training program. Sergeant Hayes, who had been her most persistent critic, approached Sarah during the first training session after her return. "Martinez," he said, his tone notably different from their previous interactions, "I owe you an apology. I let my preconceptions influence my evaluation of your abilities, and that was wrong. Your performance during the mission demonstrated exactly the kind of skill and professionalism we expect from our snipers." The acknowledgement meant more to Sarah than Hayes probably realized. She had worked so hard to prove herself worthy of respect, and finally, receiving that recognition felt like a validation of everything she had endured. Colonel Williams called Sarah into her office for a private debrief on the mission. During their conversation, she revealed something that surprised Sarah. "I want you to know that your rifle from the mission has been examined by our armorers. The precision of your shot under those conditions and at that distance was remarkable. In fact, your performance has been noted at the highest levels of military leadership." Colonel Williams paused before continuing. "There's something else you should know. We've been tracking the performance of all our graduates, and your record is already attracting attention from special operations units that are looking for qualified snipers. Your career is just beginning, but you've already proven yourself capable of operating at the highest levels." Sarah completed the remaining weeks of sniper school with new confidence and renewed purpose. The doubts that had plagued her during the difficult middle weeks of training were replaced by the certainty that she belonged among the military's elite marksmen. Her performance during the combat mission had proven, beyond any question, that she possessed the skills and mental toughness required for sniper operations. On graduation day, Sarah stood with the other successful candidates as they received their sniper badges in a ceremony attended by senior military leaders. Of the 33 candidates who had started the program, only 18 had successfully completed all requirements. Sarah was not only among the graduates, but she had finished with the highest overall scores in shooting accuracy and mission performance. As she pinned the sniper badge to her uniform, Sarah thought about all the people who had helped her reach this moment. Her grandfather, who had taught her to shoot and instilled in her the values that guided her military service. Master Sergeant Shun, who had recognized her potential and provided guidance throughout the training program. Colonel Williams, who had served as an example of what was possible for women in combat roles. But most of all, Sarah thought about the young girl who had spent weekends at the shooting range, dreaming of serving her country and proving that gender was not a barrier to excellence. That dream had become reality through determination, skill, and the willingness to face any challenge in pursuit of her goals. After the graduation ceremony, Sarah received her next assignment. She would be joining a special operations unit as a qualified sniper, where her skills would be put to use in defense of American interests around the world. The assignment represented the culmination of everything she had worked to achieve, but she also knew it was just the beginning of her career as a military sniper. Years later, when young women asked Sarah for advice about pursuing careers in traditionally male-dominated military specialties, she would tell them about the importance of persistence, preparation, and self-belief. She would explain that doubts and criticism from others could only hold you back if you allowed them to influence your own confidence in your abilities. But most importantly, she would tell them about a night when everything depended on a single shot, and how that moment proved that skills and determination mattered more than any preconceptions about who could or couldn't succeed in the most demanding military roles. The kill count on her rifle had stopped the doubters cold, but more significantly, it had proven to herself that she truly belonged among the finest marksmen in the military. Sarah's story became an inspiration for future generations of women seeking to serve in combat roles. Proof that barriers could be broken through excellence in performance rather than arguments about fairness or equality. She had let her abilities speak for themselves, and in doing so, she had opened doors for others to follow in her footsteps. The young woman who had once faced expulsion from sniper school had become a symbol of what was possible when talent, determination, and opportunity converged. Her journey from doubtful candidate to combat-proven sniper demonstrated that the only limitations that truly matter are those we impose on ourselves.